Let's take a look at implementing HRD programs. Proper implementation assumes that a need for training has been identified and that the training program objectives have been set. The program objectives should greatly influence the design issues, as well as the selection of training methods used to conduct or implement training. Some of the most exciting developments in HRD concern the increased use of technology in program implementation. Technology can replace traditional classroom delivery approaches or be used alongside other classroom approaches. Clearly, training is intended to increase the expertise of trainees in a particular area. When thinking about what training method or methods to use, it's useful to consider the current level of expertise that trainees possess. Novice trainees generally require more guided or instruction-centered training methods. As trainees' existing level of expertise increases, they become more creative and more confident. Thus, the desired or ideal training methods are also likely to shift more towards exploratory or experimental methods. Because experimental methods generally require more time to complete than instruction-centered approaches, they are not as commonly used to reach large numbers of individuals. An individual must first learn what to do, declarative knowledge, before they can learn how to do it, procedural knowledge. An effective training or HRD program should first identify where trainees are in terms of this pyramid. Then they should provide assistance for all trainees to ascend toward the expert level of performance. In many situations, both guided and experimental approaches are used. For example, lecture, discussion, and games or simulations. This combined approach is especially valuable when trainees have different learning styles. Training methods can be classified by whether they take place on the job versus away from the employee's normal work setting. A third category of training methods includes those that use self-paced or an individualized approach. On-the-job training involves conducting training at a trainee's regular workstation. Most employees receive at least some training and coaching on the job. Some argue that employees learn and retain more through informal learning on the job than they do through formal training programs. Unfortunately, much of the on-the-job training is conducted informally without structure, planning, or careful thought. Structured on-the-job programs are generally conducted by an assigned trainer who is recognized, rewarded, and trained to provide appropriate instructional techniques. On the job facilitates the transfer of learning to the job because the trainee has an immediate opportunity to practice the work tasks. Transfer of learning is enhanced because the learning environment is the same as the performance environment. On the job also reduces training costs because no training facilities are needed. There are limitations to on-the-job training. While using it, customers are present and it may inconvenience them and temporarily reduce the quality of service. On the job involving equipment or chemicals may threaten the safety or of others who are working close by. Job instruction training, or JIT, is defined as a sequence of instructional procedures used by a trainer to train employees while they work in their assigned jobs. It's a form of OJT. Preparation may include providing employees with a training manual, handouts, and other job aids that can be used as references. Some trainers demonstrate the task before asking the trainee to repeat the process. Practice time is important for the trainee to master a particular set of skills. Finally, the trainer needs to conduct a follow-up as a way of ensuring that the trainee is making progress. Job rotation is similar in intent, but with this approach, a trainee is generally expected to learn more by observing and doing than by receiving instruction. Rotation involves a series of assignments to different positions or departments for a specified period of time. Classroom training are conducted outside of the normal work setting. In this sense, a classroom can be any training space set away from the work site, such as the company cafeteria or a meeting room. Although many organizations capitalize on whatever usable space they have available to conduct training sessions, some larger organizations maintain facilities that serve as freestanding training centers. These training centers are now increasingly referred to as corporate universities, with curricula that include course coverings of a wide range of skill and content areas. Conducting training away from the work setting has several advantages over OJT. First, classroom settings permit the use of a variety of training techniques such as video or DVDs, lecture, discussion, role playing, and simulation. Second, the environment can be designed or controlled to minimize distractions and to create a climate conducive to learning. Third, classroom settings can accommodate larger numbers of trainees than a typical on the job training setting. Two potential disadvantages of classroom methods include increased costs and dissimilarity to the job setting. The lecture method involves the oral presentation of information by a subject matter expert to a group of listeners. The lecture continues to be a popular training technique. It is an efficient way of transmitting factual information to a large audience in a relatively short period of time. When used in conjunction with visual aids, such as slides, charts, maps, and handouts, the lecture can be an effective way to facilitate the transfer of theories, concepts, procedures, and other factual material. The lecture method has also been widely criticized, particularly because it emphasizes one-way communication and is poorly suited for individualized training. Although a skilled lecturer may effectively communicate conceptual knowledge to trainees who are prepared to receive it, the lecture has limited value in facilitating attitudinal and behavioral changes when used alone. However, a meta-analysis found that positive learning effects from the lecture method, both when used alone and in combination with other methods, such as discussion and role-playing. Trainers should make every effort to make their lectures as interesting as possible. There are advantages to supplementing lecture with other methods, particularly when abstract or procedural material needs to be presented. These combinations can increase two-way communication and facilitate greater interaction with the material. The discussion method involves two-way communication among the trainer and trainees. Because active participation is encouraged, the discussion method offers trainees an opportunity for feedback, clarification, and sharing points of view. The success of this method depends on the ability of the trainer to initiate and manage class discussion by asking good questions. Direct questions can be used to illustrate or produce a very narrow response. Reflective questions can be used to mirror what someone else says to make sure their message is received as intended. Open-ended questions can be used to challenge the trainees to increase their understanding of a specific topic. Most recommend the greatest use of open-ended questions, since these encourage creativity with minimal use of direct or leading questions. Good questions should create clarity and help people think critically. The trainer should reinforce trainee responses. Respect and acknowledgement should be given to all responses, even those that are not exactly what the facilitator may be looking for at that point in the discussion. Managing discussions in large training classes can be difficult. Dividing a large class into smaller discussion groups, which can then share their ideas with other groups, can increase the opportunity for discussion. Sufficient time must be available for meaningful discussion to take place, and trainees need to have a common reference point for meaningful discussion to occur. A skilled facilitator is needed to manage the discussion process. Audiovisual methods take advantage of various media to illustrate dynamic and complex training material. Static media typically involve fixed illustrations that use both words and images. This can include printed materials, slides, and overhead transparencies. Printed materials such as handouts, charts, guides, reference books, and textbooks allow trainees to keep the material and refer to it before, during, and after a session. Slides can also be synchronized with audio tapes or digitized clips from a standardized presentation without using a skilled trainer. An effective video takes advantage of the capabilities of the medium rather than simply reproducing a printed or static presentation. Unfortunately, many videos are indeed little more than reproductions of traditional lectures. Telecommunication technology allows organizations to conduct virtual conferences or training programs between remote locations. Studies have shown that audiovisual training methods like film, television, and video conferencing are often effective. So far, we've discussed training methods that focus primarily on presentation training content. In many of these methods, the learner is generally understood to be a passive recipient of information. Experiential training advocates argue that effective learning requires active engagement and experience. The case study method helps trainees learn analytical and problem solving skills by presenting a story about people in an organization who are facing a problem or decision. Business games are intended to develop or refine problem solving and decision making skills. However, this technique tends to focus primarily on business management decisions such as maximizing profit. Another type of simulation used in development programs and assessment centers is the in-basket exercise. The goal of this technique is to assess the trainee's ability to establish priorities, plan greater relevant information, and make decisions. Role-playing is a popular training technique, though often it's a method that's loved by some and hated by others. In role-playing, trainees are presented with an organizational situation, assigned a role or character in the situation, and asked to act out the role with one or more other trainees. Social learning theory suggests that many of our behavioral patterns are learned from observing others. This theory forms the basis for behavior modeling. In organizations, employees learn all kinds of behaviors from observing superiors, managers, and coworkers who serve as role models. Under normal conditions, role models can have a tremendous influence on individual behavior. As you can see, there's a tremendous variety in the use of experimental methods in training and classroom settings. Computer-based training, CBT, can be conducted using a classroom or via an individual, self-paced format. Computers and other advances in technology have had an enormous impact on the delivery of training in organizations. Increasingly, e-learning is combining elements of instructor-led and self-paced learning. The interaction between learner and computer in many CBT programs mirrors the one-on-one relationship between student and tutor. Questions and responses go back and forth, resulting in immediate feedback. An additional advantage of technology-based training is that it's well suited to on-demand learners. That is, trainees who need, and increasingly demand, greater control over when and how training is delivered. Computer-aided instruction (CAI) programs are available at a relatively low cost for a wide range of material, from teaching basic skills such as reading and typing to highly technical scientific, engineering, and machine maintenance topics. CAI's self-pacing feature that allows trainees to control the speed of instruction and makes them self-sufficient learners. Internet-based training (IBT) uses internal computer networks for training purposes. Through their organization's intranet, HRD professionals can communicate with learners, conduct needs assessment, and other administrative tasks. Intelligent computer-assisted instruction (ICAI), sometimes also called intelligent tutoring systems, goes beyond CAI in terms of flexibility and the ability to qualify and evaluate learner performance. Artificial intelligence research is uncovering ways to improve ICAI programs' capability to use natural language to interact with and understand learners by tracking responses and learning from them. Artificial intelligence research is finding ways to improve ICAI programs' capability to understand learners. How should the choice be made concerning which method or methods to use to deliver training? Trainers should make this decision while simultaneously considering the objectives to be achieved, the resources available, and trainee characteristics and expertise. Although technology-based training is widely used, this may not be the best solution for every training situation. There is increasing discussion of blended learning, which is some combination of traditional, classroom-based, and technology-enhanced training. There are advantages to both trainees and organizations beyond what can be obtained using any single delivery method by itself. An important implementation decision concerns the arrangement of a physical environment for training or development. The environment is particularly important to on the job training because a trainee must feel comfortable enough to concentrate and learn. Trainees should find ways to remove or minimize distractions that interfere with training. In a classroom setting, a number of factors should be considered when arranging the physical environment. Seating is important because it establishes a spatial relationship between the trainer and trainee. The physical comfort level is also important for successful learning. Extremes in room temperatures can inhibit learning, as an example. A trainer should inspect a room in advance if possible to determine whether any noise, lighting, or physical barriers will interfere with planned activities. If such problems exist, it may be possible to find a more suitable location. Equipment for visuals like screens, whiteboards, or flip charts should be arranged to facilitate seamless transactions. Computers and other technology should be tested in advance to ensure that they work as intended during the training program. The whole notion of asynchronous learning arises with online learning scenarios. After you have all the elements needed to implement an HRD intervention or program, the final step is to just do it. It's important for a trainer to get the program off to a good start and to maintain it. If there are to be multiple sessions, the first one sets the tone for the remainder of the program. A trainer can establish clear expectations by preparing a course outline or syllabus that explains the purpose, objectives, topics, and requirements that establish each class norms for relevant issues. In addition to establishing expectations, the trainer should try to determine each trainee's capacity and motivation to learn if it's not done before the session. It may be beneficial to include activities that reinforce motivation, like asking participants what they'd like to accomplish, illustrating the benefits of achieving the training programs, and having participants complete a learning contract. Many training programs include some sort of icebreaker exercise or opening connection questions to help participants get to know one another and establish rapport with each other and the trainer. A trainer should make every effort to build a climate characterized by mutual respect and openness. This, in turn, will make it easier for trainees to seek help when they need it. There are many skills involved in effectively running a group meeting and in facilitating learning. We encourage you to read about the subject and seek opportunities to build platform and interpersonal skills. Professional journalists like T&D and training include frequent articles on effective training skills.